very important for people to know the real history, because not to know the real history, and you must know world history and European history, and you must dismiss the black and white game. If you don't, you're already in the trap. You're in the matrix. All right, the other thing is, because certain things that we were talking about earlier, different things that we're hitting on, and hearing people say different things. One of the things I recognize that a lot of people fail to recognize is law, what it is not, what brings it about. And so I think with a lot of us, this can help. And I'm going to go to this point first, then we're going to open up the questions so that we can deal with the matters that are important or that's before us. Now, pardon me, all civilization operates on contract. There's no such thing as civilization operating without contract. Contract is an agreement, a treaty, constitution, verbal, oral, however. They're covenants. They're all forms of contract. One of the things that I see that's a weakness with us is because of the usurpation of the United States Republic, which the Moors helped set up. People unconsciously keep equating the U.S. democracy and the United States Republic, which is the first weakness. Now, I want to make it very, 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 very clear. The U.S. democracy has no law. The United States Republic of Morocco has the Constitution. They cut Morocco off. That is what the slavery really is. Do you understand? People's concept of what the slavery is in the Western Hemisphere is totally wrong. So before you can really understand how to deal with the law, you must understand what the secret societies did. You have to have, put it this way, if you don't have any knowledge as to what is the body of information or the foundation principle body of information that the secret societies across the world have, you can't understand how and why governments are run. Do you understand? It's not left to emotions. And we have a tendency when waking up to still mix emotions with realities. This is where we get caught in the matrix that everybody just is talking about. And that vague area where foreign authorities are able to take jurisdiction in other areas where they have none. And then we get to the position of arguing what the law is and what the law is not. And so you come back to the foundation principles. And so if you don't understand the political evolution on how the Europeans established government here, then you can't understand law, nor can you understand your history, nor can you understand their history, nor can you understand how we interchange. It is because of the Inquisitionists and when they started the artificiality of race, that's part of the trap. If you get caught into that, you're caught in the trap. So one of the things that you have to do is to begin to dissolve in your mind the fictions and then begin to deal with the realities. The reality is that this is one broad and expanded human family that's broken down into broader families that are called nationalities. Once you took that game when the sociologists started creating the race game in order to start to divide the people so they could rob them, and you take that as an information base and you go from that on any point, whether you're dealing with law, governments, etc., you're already wrong. It is no different than if I say, well, let's give you a mathematical problem, and we're going to give you 3 columns of numbers, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication. We're not going to argue that. I'm going to give you 3 columns of numbers. Then I don't tell you that one column is written in invisible ink. Your outcome will never be right. You understand? Parabolically, you understand that. So
you know what I mean? Because a motherfucker to feel like he's slick, you know, and not to go into it all sort of belligerent, you know, outlandish or whatever. I just know that, you know, at points, you know, we get a glimmer of some of that luminous, you know what I mean, that iridescent. And I won't take that for granted, you know. That's not nothing that I could ever plan or expect. So it makes it just that much more special, you know, to be able to share it, even if it's not like an acknowledged or outward sort of connection. You know, I know me, you know, and I know my spirit and my soul and my karma. So that's where I'm compelled to confer, you feel me? And consult. You dig? And the nigga sit up and let you not say nothing to him, just to be like, oh, whoop-de-wop, like, you know, they want to learn your quirks and all these things and your tics, right? So as to say, okay, when it is that you wouldn't respond, when naturally you would, just so as to, you know, certify your stance, at least the first time, as to exactly what it is that you will accept or condone or agree to. Like, you know, cats be feeling like they can get away with shit, like, and that's fine, but at the same time, it took a whole nother turn. It took another drift into, oh, well, I'm gonna make sure that I'm justified in the whack ass shit and the bitch ass shit that I'm presenting to niggas, right? If they don't, you know, if I don't affect them, then obviously they feel like, you know, I deserve what I get, basically. When that's a lot of extra thinking. Cats be feeling like they can get away with shit. Like, not everybody, hardly anybody is ready for love. And that's kind of like a twisted sort of like, really like crazy spin. A blessing to the wretched is a curse. Not everybody, hardly anybody is ready for love. And the nigga said it to let you not say nothing to him. You know, because energies, like I always say, it's beyond just this lifetime. We come from a lineage of predecessors and ancestry, right? And everybody wasn't whack, nigga. Everybody wasn't lying, yeah? Everybody wasn't lying. Faking, yeah? Faking. So we can't, that's never gonna be the best move. It's never gonna be in an overallly effective mode to entertain. That is, of course, the pretentious mode, the surface mode, the superficial sort of, you know, for oneself mode. Because at the same time, if there's not like an element, a foundation of honorability, of devotion towards togetherness for everybody, for every living human, being that we're all imperfect, right? And God put us here all together for a reason, right? It's like, that's another whole point of what I always be saying. Like, you can always stump with a nigga, you can always go, you know what I'm saying? It can always be up and stuck up for generations, you know what I mean? It's cats on the block who is in the red, no matter what, from numerous sets. It's so many sets in the same sort of setting that at any given moment, you might even not see who's shooting you, cuz. And even then, other than that, nigga, you face to face shooting at niggas, basically. You know what I mean? For the most part, my niggas ain't necessarily dumping on niggas from far, for one thing. Right? Because to even be involved with that sort of activity, you got to have an element of warriorhood, of what is called of honorability, cuz. Right? Because that's smutty. You don't get no respect for that, for no cowardice, cuz. Right?
We're here for another high-level conversation. 19 keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the guide. Peace, family. Welcome back to High-Level Conversations. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about Black philosophy.
and truly the lack of it in the public square, in the public forum, in dialogue. We don't typically have conversations around what this Black intellectual have said or thought or their ideas. So for me, I believe that we cannot evolve unless we're evolving on the great minds that came before us. And I've been thinking about that for a long time because I think about how do we control our future? How do we make a more certain future? And I have this belief that everyone should at least pick one ancestor's work, ideas to propel into the future, to make true. Some of them had theories, some of them had philosophy, some of them built things, but did not see the completion of. So when I think about other cultures and societies, they often can look toward their past and say, I'm building this based on this person that I respect and their ideas. And they get to pull from that and they get to have this honor and this love and this pride in it. And today they take their money and their power and their network and their resources, right? And sometimes they even put it in their name to show that this spirit is still living through my ingenuity, right? Through my works, through my knowledge, right? Through my conquest, whatever it may be. And, you know, coming as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I always looked at the amount of infrastructure he had at the time of his living and how he was focused on building economics, right? But also providing the knowledge of light to a people to show them import, export, right? How to create their own buildings, how to have self-sufficiency. And then in my conquest of younger, as I started to study, I looked outside at different philosophers, right? I was telling my good brother here, Cornell West, about the time that I studied Socrates and actually how that helped me gain my freedom in the case because it allowed me to understand the thinking and the concepts of strategy and deception and the way the courtroom worked. And I remember suggesting things to my lawyer and, you know, I was able to understand the legalese of everything that was happening around me and the language of deception because that's how it feels when I'm in the courtroom. But when I think about society today, I think we lack any real process of thinking, right? We want to argue for the sake of arguing or for the sake of ego, but not for the sake of getting to the truth, right? Which I believe we waste a lot of energy that we could conserve towards solutions. Hardest job, I think, is thinking, right? I don't think we have a thinking society. And if I can accomplish anything about this sit down today, is to get us thinking in the right direction. I'm not looking for agreement. I'm just looking for us to think because I think a thinking man is a free man. A thinking woman is a free woman. And that ability to think will always allow you to have the resources, right, to gain your own freedom. So without further ado, I introduce somebody who should be in all high regards across households of Black America, but also white America, because this type of thinking challenges all of society, regardless of race. But as he says in one of his books, and it's titled Race Matters. So we're going to get into that discussion as well. And some of this may be new to you. So I want you to grab a pen. I want you to grab a pencil. But more importantly, I want you to open your mind. Let's have this high level conversation.
My brother, man. Salute you.
Salute to you.
Salute you there, brother.
Calling him crazy and all sorts of things. And he was challenging people, right? He was asking the scientists of the world, come together and discuss these ideas with me then. And so Eric Weinstein sat down with him and he felt very mafia the way he sat down and talked to him. It was a little bit of belittling. But the one thing that I thought about with Terrence, number one, every idea that he talked about from mathematicians and scientists, Terrence Howard knew exactly what he was talking about. He was never left at one point in time, which lets me know he was guided fully by his interest to dive into these subjects. So he never had a linear path, right, of studying and discipline. Where those traditional scientists, they have a linear path. I'm going through this discipline. I have to go through this school of thought to learn it this way from this perspective. And then this word has to mean this because it's connected to this theory. And He took more of a poetic license. This is the way I learned it. This is the way I interpret it. This is the way I use it. And out of that, he was actually able to produce some usefulness through his engineering and his patents. But something you said about, how we are connected from the heart and the spirit of our mind, our gut. When we speak, we animate things, right? We speak in a very animated way. We move. That's our spirit, right? Our ability to create and breathe life into things. So when we speak, we're going to speak with some rhythm. I'm not going to say it in a dry way that you would, because you're speaking only from the mind. I'm speaking from the heart and intuitively through the gut.
Absolutely.
Right? So me giving life and breathing and animating things, I have that license to do because that's part of my spirituality, my ka, my breath. So I think that's something that they don't understand. They love it. It's entertaining to them. But twofold, it comes also with all of this empathy. As we're able to project out all of this spirit, we feel all of this spirit as well.
Yeah.
So as we're able to animate and create, the other thing that our enemy use against us, right, is how much empathy and emotion we feel. And they understood that they can be Machiavellian in thought, shrewd and cunning in practice, and just get over on the next man for the point of profit over people, capitalism, or rulership.
That's right.
Well, we feel. And unless we discard that part of ourselves, we can't rule in such a manner.
That's
right?
true.
So I want to get, first of all, in your thoughts of how you see Machiavellianism manifest in politics through rulers.
Yeah, brother, you just laid out some very profound formulations, man, because I think you have got at so much of the heart of Black culture, which always is connected to the African cultures, meaning there's a kinetic orality. There's a way of using language and stylizing space and time with an intensity. There is a passionate physicality. So you put your body in it, you put your heart, your mind, your soul, and your intellect all simultaneously. You don't separate these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that in order to touch others, because it's all about serving others, empowering others, enabling others, and trying to get others to feel better about themselves, given the catastrophe that we have to deal with every day. But then the third thing is combative spirituality. So if you got a kinetic orality, a passionate physicality, and a combative spirituality, it means you have a tenacity, a fortitude, you got an armor, and you bring all of that together to do what? People think it's just kind of narrow performance. No. It is to remind people of the greatness of a people who had to deal with overwhelming catastrophes and never allowed a catastrophe to have the last word. And then to speak to an audience so that you touch the audience. I was just looking at Kim the other night and the way in which she reaches out and touches the audience. And you think of our great performers, from James Brown to Aretha Franklin to Phyllis Hyman to the Whispers, the Dramatics. They think it's just performance. No. You touch an audience in order to authorize a different future. Now, what Machiavellian orientation is manipulation. It's dishonesty. It's deception. It's deceit tied to your ego. I mean, I was blessed to travel the country with a genius named Bootsy Collins. We wrote 2 songs together on his powerful album, Funk Capital of the World, right? When we traveled, George Clinton sometime come with us and so forth. We always had a prayer right before we go in. You say, now, Brother West, say what you got to say, brother. I say, I'm just saying what James Brown taught y'all 40 years ago. What's that? We gonna give everything we got on that stage. We gonna empty ourselves in such a way that when we come back, we can hardly move, but we would have touched somebody so that they can leave more equipped to deal with life. See, that's how James taught them. And James didn't learn that by himself.
Yes, sir.
You go back to Barnwell, South Carolina, go back to Augusta, Georgia, and go all the way back to the slave ships and slave auctions, you see. How do you keep that kind of tradition alive? So that in that way, you see, when I say we are soulful people, soul is the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of catastrophe. So what you do and say and write and how you reflect, seek truth and beauty and goodness, you're trying to be soulful in the sense of you soothing as well as unsettling as well as empowering the folk, all simultaneously. It's like, that sounds like a Coltrane solo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Past them. First issue is your status. Can I erase this? Has this been done over? All right. Now, and keep this in mind. And while I'm talking to you, I'm going to explain to you also why the game is played. The color is actually political sorcery, if you understand it. Then you have now in issues of controversy, that's the process. So the first thing that comes before any court, any lawful court, now you got colorable courts, and you can have where you have organized criminals come together and then deny process, which is common. And one of the weaknesses that people have is that they assume that people that hold government seats are not criminals. That's your first problem. It's sort of like the same misnomer that they assume that somebody, I'm a priesty guy of the Bosnatzeldorf, of the God of Christ, of Jesus and Allah and all that kind of stuff, and you, and you get all like that and figure that that person's sinless and all that stuff. They're usually the dirtiest people on the planet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Steal your dog's food and take grandmom's lunch money without a conscience. And the only problem with you is that you keep assuming that these people have some kind of authority or some kind of morality that does not apply to them. One of the things that we have to do is no different than criminal people in government assume authority and assume jurisdiction that they do not have, so do people with titles. And so whenever someone has a title, if that title applies to any public office or any public institution, the first thing that you're to require of them is not declaring their title, but declaring their title by their actions. So therefore, you should understand fundamentally what is the designated authority of anyone in any particular office, whether DOA or is the delegation of authority order, time of their installation in that office in good behavior, what the delegated authority is, what the conditions are, when it terminates, and how it terminates. And that's all the time in government. Do you understand? Particularly in a Republican form of government, which is why we established this republic. Do you understand? Now, the Inquisitionist job was, and what their mission was, and it came even before we made this agreement, to undermine the republic. This is the reason why the plenipotentiaries with the Moors warned the people once we finally decided to make peace and stop this silly wars that we're going over and over again, that you now have a republic if you're willing to keep it. And now you have a whole bunch of grown people in grown bodies with the mentality of little boys and girls that keep calling this a democracy. And as soon as they say that, they lose their political birthright. As soon as you agree to that, without a challenge, you've given up your political birthright and you've agreed to a fraudulent jurisdiction. Now, so what that makes you is booty and prize to organized criminals who will tell you to your face that this is a democracy and you haven't challenged it. No different if they call you Negro, black, and colored and you didn't challenge it. It's assumed. And if it's assumed and you don't object, it stands. Do you understand? This is another reason why anything relative to the rights of people is made in a public declaration. So you must make a public declaration of your independence from the fraud, as well as your declaration of your allegiance to the principles of civilized government. Do you understand? And so even like when like children say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. All right, that's cliche to most people. However, it means more than what they think it means. Do you understand? Now, that's those who pledge allegiance to the peace between the Moors and the European nations in here and establish this government of amity and peace and to do commerce in this Moorish empire. Do you understand? What they did is overthrew it. Six and Chestnut, and they took the nationality and birthrights away from the Moors, and different Moors were in government. They told them step down or die. Do you understand? And they instituted in 1779 the Negro and the black crap retroactively into the history documents. They started burning documents. They started hiding documents, transferring books into different areas of the countries and into secret societies. And they started making up new records.
It's like Kenny said again, I'm back to Kenny. That nigga be resurrecting himself, yeah? But yeah, like I said, why you jumping, why you pulling out if you ain't walking up, you fucking, you know what I'm saying? You know how it go. Off the, what's the name, Ignorant is Bliss? Oh no, that's off the joint. That's off the Good Kid, Mad City joint. Why you if you ain't walking up? Like, right, if you can't catch a fair one with a nigga, then you don't never revert to no weapons. You know what I mean? The only time you got weapons is when it's on and live like that with your enemy and it's already been bullets exchanged. Right? And even then, if they unarmed, that's always frowned upon, regardless. I mean, these young niggas took it to other levels because, of course, it's always, like I said, it's so many sets in the same setting, always twisted and intermingling. But I mean, aside from that, the whole point of even why I brought that up is basically like, we here together, right? And if it's gonna be funk, it's gonna be funk. So that has to be handled with a structure to where it doesn't bleed into these unhonorable and deplorably non-respectable realms. It's like, well, what did you even have anything to say for if you're not finna handle it? Because it's not nothing to talk about, okay? First of all, you don't announce nothing you about to do. You don't know who might be listening. Everybody got family. Yeah. Trust and believe that, yeah. And families got families, and friends got families. My nigga, let alone brothers, nigga, within the order. So it's never ending. It's a cycle, but it's not designed to never end. That's why we have. It's not designed to never end. That's why we have those in place. We have the OG heads in place. You know what I mean? Come to add some sort of, sensibility, even after the chaos breaks out. That's what happens. You know what I'm saying? You got those who have basically directed meeting up to make arrangements and decisions. And if whoever else don't have enough respect to honor that decision made by those in a more direct position, because they put in more work, they did more time, nigga. You know what I'm saying? They done met with other heads, right? They didn't handle other beefs. You feel what I'm talking about? So if it's anybody that's outside of that circle, then they get reprimanded by their own people, and they can end up getting put down. You feel what I'm talking about? So that's why it's like, you got to understand what your motive is, really what your whole sense of involvement is where it's rooted at. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you myself, nigga, it was never a choice for me. It's not that it wasn't never a choice. It's like, nigga, I'm outside at all moments, good. 83rd, my nigga. And West, Florence and Normandy, nigga. Like I told you, I seen Reginald Denny get hit with the brick, nigga, with my own eyes, not on camera, nigga. Nigga, them first shots was on my block, nigga. The first shots of the LA riots, nigga, was outside of my door, cuz. Yeah, we sparked it off, nigga. You understand? I stayed across the street from War on Wheels, nigga. Well, everybody come to thump at. You understand? So I'm letting you know. It's not for no reason. it's not for no reason. You dig? And where it starts is out of organization, out of mobilizing. You know what I'm saying? Your format of exchange. Because it comes down to what? It comes down to honor. Right? As men on earth into the next step, the next level. Beyond that. But you gotta start somewhere to where you can have a sense of togetherness, my nigga. There has to be some sense of togetherness, and it has to be beyond just race. It has to be beyond just class. It has to be a code. You know what I'm saying? This niggas from hoods, it's Mexican niggas from hoods that all type of different races is from. It don't matter. Like for the most part, it's gonna be pretty collected or concentrated, but that's only because that's the way it already is. But if it was Asian people there and they happen to live in the same area, then you gonna rep the same headline, and ain't nobody gonna question you. You know what I'm saying? You look past all of that. So it's like you gotta be careful. Like, you know what I'm saying? You clicking up based on areas when that's only one part of it. You know what I mean? That's why you got the blue and the red, my nigga. You feel me?
Between the Moors and the European nations in here and establish this government of amity and peace and to do commerce in this Moorish empire. Do you understand? What they did is overthrew it. Six and Chestnut, and they took the nationality and birthrights away from the Moors, and different Moors were in government. They told them step down or die. Do you understand? And they instituted in 1779 the Negro and the black crap retroactively into the history documents. They started burning documents. They started hiding documents, transferring books into different areas of the countries and into secret societies. And they started making up new records. And in the new records, they started listing the Moors as blacks, Negroes, according to the territories. And they take the children and send the children to the Northeast Territory, they send them to the Southeast Territory. They take them from the Southeast Territory, send them to the Northwest Territory, and vice versa across the Nile River, which you call the Mississippi. And they've been playing the game, they even do it in military. Then Horace Greeley, who you saw, said, "Go West, young man," was competing with Abe Lincoln, etc. He was like a tycoon with newspapers in New York. And they went about, Noah Webster too, went about altering the history, rewriting the history. That's your real truth of your period of Reconstruction. Those who know a lot of these fundamental keys have an oath of death, belong to secret societies. You notice that they'll wear our fez too in those secret societies. They call them Masons, Knights of Columbus, Eastern Star, Skull and Bones, and whoever they are next week. But the fundamental bottom line knowledge is Moabite, Moorish history and culture in this land, not somewhere else. And Africa is not a Keeblan there. Northwest Africa and Southwest Africa is North America, Central America, South America. The Amazon River is not over there. The Amazon River is in South Africa, right here in the West.
And so here I come along, running for justice, running for Jesus, running for poor and working people, beginning on the chocolate side of town. Say, we gonna tell the truth about this empire. We're gonna tell the truth about capitalism, white supremacy, and all the other forms of domination. And we are going to resist. We're gonna fight back. But what's at the center of it? Not hatred and revenge. It's love and justice. It's courage and compassion. And people say, oh, that's going to get you killed. Everybody going to die. You going to get out of space and time alive? No, everybody die. How do you use your death? That's the question.
Yes, sir.
You see, how do you allow God to use you in your life and in your death? That's the question all of us have. You know what I mean? And it's a beautiful thing to be a black man in a great tradition.
Yes, sir.
Of a great people with a laughter, a humor, a humanity, a style, a smile, and a soulfulness
Mm.
that the world can never fully imitate, even as they are intoxicated by it.
Mm.
So that's just a beautiful part. That's a lovely part. You know what I mean? Code of brotherhood. At the same time, you represented forward motion and movement as far as growth. Whether it's economic, whether it be cultural, whether it be spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Everybody know your face, girl. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no hiding the dirt. Keep you in, the dirtier you get. That's just the way it goes. So it's like at the same time, what is you understand? What is it gonna be worth though? You feel me? What, fucking clout, nigga? Nah, man. Yeah, the shit is nuts, man. You know what I mean? It's like you gotta kind of check your balances. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Before you wreck yourself. Like the great Ice Cube says. Because it's like, you know, if you don't have no type of like contribution, then it's only gonna last for so long. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta look around and see what your people really need. They gonna need that love. They gonna need that care, that understanding and compassion. They gonna need you to stay raw with them. They gonna need you to not pretend or not wish ill upon them or allow them to fuck themselves over just so that when they don't or somebody see that, they can feel a way about what you didn't do that you could have did and all those other things. That's only, you only got time for that because we're not focused on what the next best move is, basically. Right? And not acknowledging the original structure, which have to do with community development. Community development, you feel me? You're not finna get away with really bubbling in no type of way without it benefiting everybody who is there to defend you and protect you, what the next best move is. And that's the whole part. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because honestly, anything else is that surface shit. And you only gonna progress within it superficially. And that's not an energy you wanna bring back to where, you know what I'm saying, you feel me, you was cultivated at anyway, because that's just gonna cause more resentment, cause more animosity and anxiety. You feel what I'm talking about? So it's spiritual and mental. It's physical, because at the same time, it's like, you gotta be active, and that's the whole part. That's the whole definition of what they mean when they say active. It gets wild because cats will be everywhere and doing all type of crazy, wild ass shit because it's really no restrictions. I wouldn't say limits, but it's not really no restrictions outside, of course, of the structured activity. But that in itself opens up, you know what I'm saying? It actually activates and initiates exposures as well as experiences, right? And as well as extensions. That's just the way it goes when it comes to that heart, right? When it comes to that just lawless adrenaline.
These stories, right? So I'm just sitting there learning like, wow, really to be a man is to be somebody who got the courage to be willing to throw down for something bigger than them. But then also to be vulnerable enough and have a sense of intimacy enough for that Socratic dimension, which is that self-criticism. It's the only way you grow, develop, and mature. And then when I read about the great figures of the past, from Frederick Douglass to Harriet Tubman, both simultaneously, man and woman, both of them, courageous, visionary, sacrificial, serving, the least of these, coming out of 25th chapter of Matthew. I said, I see. To be a man is to be willing to learn from a variety of others, women and other folk, but still acknowledge I've got something to do in light of what gifts I have and how do I cultivate those gifts. And then I learned it too, in the music. I have to be very honest about that. Delphonics and dramatics and Curtis Mayfield, especially, and Gil Scott-Heron and others provided real examples for me of how you be a black man with self-respect and with a love for the people. The Panther Party was very influential for me. That's my generation.
Yes,
you
sir.
see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
With Huey and the others. Oh, Lord have mercy. I saw those brothers march into my hometown in October 1966 with their guns.
Yeah.
And everybody going crazy. And Reagan don't know what to do. I said, dang, I got to find out what went into the making of these kind of brothers. Because it wasn't a question of ideology and politics.
Yeah.
It was a question of their sense of standing up for something they believed in, and they did it with style. They did it with style. Same was true of the Nation of Islam. They come into the community with those bow ties and sharp, with the green pies and selling the newspaper. Yeah, I remember just, coming out of the club on Saturday night after slow dancing under the purple light. But I said, hey, these brothers, they got something that I need to learn from. Now, we struggled over I've had some wonderful conversations really with Minister Louis Farrakhan on struggling over issues of patriarchy and other issues. But it was always an element of my own openness to learn, just like he was always open to learn. And we became brothers even as we agreed to disagree. And most importantly, that love is always deeper than any disagreement.
Yes, sir.
And that's crucial. The same would have been true with Ronald Elijah Muhammad if I had a chance to meet him.
Did you ever get to see him in person? Not to cut your wisdom.
Who, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Yes, sir.
No, I never saw him. I never saw him in person. Not at all. I was talking to the Honorable Silas Muhammad, who right here in Los Angeles, he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he was 18 years old. And he said, I never felt so much love coming from a human heart as when I met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's what Silas said. I'm just sitting there listening. Me and Brother Malik, Zulu Shabazz, we just sitting there listening to him, you see. And you see, most of the world doesn't see that. They don't hear that because they got all the misconceptions and the lies about the brother and so forth. And it's not, again, you got to agree with everything. Now, first, what was the initial impression of all of this love flowing from him to this young brother, 17 years old? James Baldwin said the same thing when he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Remember in Fire Next Time?
Yes, sir.
He says, he had this unique kind of smile. And then he adds, I wonder what it would sound like if he could sing the blues. He said, oh, Lord have mercy.
Joyce, you haven't even proven who you are. What happens is we keep on assuming people have jurisdiction because they can say, sis, I'm the agent of left-hand side of Bibelfetzer Incorporated. Where's your $5 from that bill I sent you? And you start saying, oh man, I didn't get my second job. And you start talking the subject. You start talking the jurisdiction. You give the jurisdiction because you haven't recognized that I didn't even establish it. Meaning that no one has authority in civilization or in government unless verified by the sovereignty of the people. Governments are established to protect, do you understand? And preserve and secure the existing, pre-existing rights of people. That's called inalienable rights and is more relative to what birthrights are. Do you understand, sister? I know not immediately, but I started off with you being involved because you need to recognize, and that is us plurally, that when somebody starts throwing that American loose to you, and the United States court, and the United States this, they can be talking about this, they can talk about this, and if they don't have any allegiance to the Constitution, they haven't set it up, they didn't prove anything to you. They can have you in some pirate court, and you don't even know it. And you agreed to it because you allowed the jurisdiction because you didn't challenge who they are in the first place. So there's a set of questions whenever you have an issue of controversy, particularly if they put you in a position where you have to defend yourself. Remember at all times, one of the things that really got a lot of the secret societies upset and government upset, that really kind of broke the back of this thing, that started this whole cycle in early 1900s, when New Abdali started the Moorish Divine National Movement, and one of the first things he did was start issuing the indigenous people their nationality cards. That began a cycle that they didn't understand at the moment. But what it begins to establish is the true jurisdiction or true sovereign of the land. But if it's not used properly, you can't understand it. Do you understand? Meaning that, like right now, say me and you, Griswold, say, man, oh, we finished now, let's go have some lunch, man. They got some nice kelp sandwiches back there and nice vegetable stuff, and so we're going to go, let's go to Russia right now. So now we're going to go to Russia. We jumped in Russia and we're going to start talking trash. Well, the Russian Constitution says you can't do this and you can't do that. First thing they want to argue is, we don't have a problem either way or the other. Where's your nationality card that gives you any authority to even argue law here? Now, if you're dealing with an issue of controversy between more than one state, etc., we can deal in consular court or court of general sessions or some international court, but you can't come here and start arguing law. You understand? You're starting to talk privileges then. But if you're a citizen, and you can only be a citizen, then you can be a natural citizen of the land, and you can be a political citizen of an organized government, both of which, and more to the second than the first, requires proof. You know, it is no different than, you know, like under a colorable jurisdiction, like say, for instance, like in a jurisdiction where they steal the people's rights of travel and then incorporate the person and then put them in a commercial entity and then regulate the people's right of travel and then rob them that way under the guise of law. And then if a private security officer, because they're not officers really, so that's wrong. If a private security agents, which they call police, because they're not elected, so they're not officers, stops a person, whether they call them citizen or not, stops a person and asks that person, where is their license? Well, the person should also ask them, where's your delegation of authority order? Because that's where they're supposed to have received certified authority from the Congress of the United States Republican form of government, that they have a right to even question the citizens under limited conditions for security purposes only, and if you committed a crime. And only one can really do that is a sheriff and anyone he deputizes, because he's the only true law according to the law. Do you understand? Anyone else is just another citizen of some private corporate agencies that's talking trash, because they don't have a right to question the citizens. See the difference between a Republican form of government and a democracy? And why they always run around telling you about a democracy? It's not a democracy. No democracy was established here. I don't know what anyone's talking about, except that somebody's been setting you up to steal your birthrights. And as soon as a politician, I don't care who they are, start running their mouth and start saying democracy, immediately recognize that they're an enemy. Forget about what they say. Forget about whether they're smiling. Forget about whether they're nice guys. They belong to the secret society of clubs of inquisitionists whose mission was to overthrow the United States Republic. Do you understand? And to institute and maintain slavery bureaucratically. Do you understand? I don't care if they say something in your favor. Do you understand? Don't be deceived.
The bottom line is the same.
Exactly correct. Now that's for a start. That's for starters. So that's for starters. So one of the first things that we're going to do to start correcting this thing is anyone who claims to have any capacity, authoritative capacity in government, they don't move on anything with you without you questioning them right on down the line, starting off with their nationality card, their DOAO, Delegation of Authority Order, certified number to the Congress of the United States Republic or agency where their authority can be verified. on the public record. And if it can't be, or if they're not forthcoming with it, or they don't have it in their possession, you have no problem with that. That person at that time has no authority, no different than if they stop a person under color of law on the street, asking them for a license, and they don't have a license, according to the colorable contract that they forced the people into, they're not supposed to be driving on the street. Am I correct? Likewise, if they don't have a DOAO, they're not supposed to be operating in government.
Excuse me, name that again so you can write that down. I got nothing.
Here you go.
Delegation of authority.
Delegation of authority order. And what that would be, what they would claim a license would be to a slave on the street to travel the land, is what that is to anybody who says they have any authority in the first place. You don't know. There's a person that came from McDonald's down there. You know, the guy was that back there sweeping the grease out of the grease pit back there down at McDonald's, and he went around the other side, put on a uniform, jumped in the car, and went to stop you and start telling you you owe him something, like a highwayman. Well, DOAO with verifiable numbers is what identifies that person. So if somebody pulls out some ID and tells you, well, I'm an agent of the Bibelfetcher of the left-hand side of the Ostbasseldorf of the United States, and you say, oh, please, don't say that again. I'm so nervous. There's so much money. You know, don't even go there. You ask them for ID, and a driver's license is not an ID. That verifies that you have a contract with a private corporation. Do you understand? That politicians have a contract with to get a kickback for robbing you, forcing you into contracts with private institutions, which they don't have the authority to do, but they did it. Ooh. You get the point?
Right, that just keeps going. It's like an avalanche, bro. And like I said, I done seen it get the rawest possible, bro, where it's just, you feel me? Carnage, bro. Wildness. It's not even because niggas is animalistic. It's just that we are physical beings, and that spirit can move through that in a way to where it's like it's awakening. It's appalling. Yes. Right? Into the next levels, man. You dig? But it always kind of gets snubbed out one way or the next. That's why we got the other homies. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we activate as well as operate in the name of the homies. In the name of the homies. And don't get me wrong, I'm not speaking on it as if it's all of it or it's all positive at all. It's dark, seated chambers and areas, absolutely. But that goes for all of America. That goes for all of communities and village settings. Not all, but generally America. But that goes for all of America. Don't get me wrong. I'm not glorifying gang violence or nothing. Affiliation is not always, and involvement is not always gotta be violent. However, it kind of gotta be violent, but not all violence is destructive either. Violence actually in another part of what it is that I'm saying, even in the bad, can be constructive, cause especially in a corrupted as well as twistedly corrupting system. Like, you gotta understand that I'm saying a lot of what it is that I'm saying. So I'll try not to lose myself in the point that I'm making or the piece that I'm presenting. It's not all good. I'm not glorifying criminal activity, because that's absolutely what is definitely included. It's criminal activity in every way, form, and fashion. You're not a gangster without criminal activity. The term gangster, even before gangs, comes from organized crime. Okay? The mob, which the mob existed from out of Italy before any gangs, cuz back in the 40s, cuz in the 30s, cuz wasn't no gangs in the 40s, but it was gangsters though. You understand? Now, see, when it is that you say mobbing, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about organized crime. Now, for the most part, the real mobsters pretty much control all of the street gang activity. Why? Because it's having to do, I won't say all of it, as far as the criminal activity, that is, of course, but all the activity is not all criminal. And it's definitely not where it starts. Sometimes you get involved because, of course, you just want to get your hands dirty. You want to be able to feel like a badass, right? You want to, you know what I mean? You have a lenience towards outlaw, you know what I'm saying? Lawlessness, like I was mentioning. But generally speaking, it's the love there, right? And it's always going to be a sense of love in different pockets, even where it's not the best. Like I said, some OGs, some big homies terrorize the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Some situations and settings for where these sets are intermingled. It's like a terror dome. It's literally, niggas call it the terror dome or the thunder dome. You feel me? But it's, you know, you can have it to where it's a lot of bullying going on, and it's like you feel pressured not to have to look a certain way, and so you kind of get involved. But to be honest, when it comes down to it, in an overall sense, real G's, real hoodsters, because that's what a gangbanger is a mix between a gangster who is a criminal and a member of a fellowship, a brotherhood. So we talking about hoodsters, right? Real hoodsters, they'll respect you more for standing your ground on your own tip. You feel me? To where it's like, if that's not what you are really, you know what I'm saying, and intrigued with or allied with and willing as well as ready to certify your allegiance to, then they'll respect you for fighting against the intimidation, the peer pressure, so to speak. You know, and it's interesting. Like, they're not gonna push your line unless you ain't made your mind up. You know, and it's like, it's fucked up because there is a certain extent, there can be some bullying that goes on. But what's funny, like, a lot of times you become a friend with the bully. I wasn't necessarily ever bullied like that, because my niggas know that I'm not half-stepping with nothing I'm doing, but at the same time, I'm not all out there with anything either, just for display either. So it's like, when you look at the two aspects of it, which is the society of it, right? The very family of it, internet, basically, the network of it, not even just the network, but the connection of it. Because you're going to have a big homie that basically introduce you to the life every time. You always going to have whatever friends. You could be surrounded by all of the different people that's representing the same thing, but you're going to gravitate towards one or two main people, and that's going to be like the big homie or whatever. Not necessarily, unless your pops is down too, and then you just basically a progeny, which happens all the time, or your uncle or your cousin. For the most part, me, I didn't have no cousins in it. I didn't have, my mom's dated a guy that was like a actual head of the gang that I ended up becoming a part of. So, but you know what I mean? That was kind of like behind the scenes and under the radar. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Behind the curtain type shit. It wasn't even like, I'm Mark's, you know what I'm saying, little homie or nothing. Because I already still lived there and I already still made my own friends. And I never really necessarily had a bigger homie. It was just that somebody that might have been with it longer than I was before I got started with it. It's very interesting because it's like I was at a point that I was what I was trying to even get to is like, your motive for even involving yourself. If it's like not respectable, if it's not something that you gonna hold down that you gonna, like, that's a part of you, regardless if your homies is there or not. Not like you pushing a line or hella flagrant with it, you know what I'm saying, banging on everybody and confronting every thing that you encounter. But at the same time, you still have that code. It's the way you hold yourself. It's the way that you interact with people. And it's not always so menacingly threatening. It's not always so, relentlessly violent or negative. It has to do with not being no sucker, not being a poop butt. Basically a buster or a custer, like that nigga say, like your boy Crip Loke, right? Crip Mac from out of Skid Row or whatever. But what's crazy is you gotta look at the dynamics of it, right? Because me, I have my own path, right? But I'm never gonna turn my back on my origin, right? It's never no need for that. You know what I mean? It takes a lot for you to just say, oh, well, I can't have nothing to do with that. You don't have to, and that's what the whole situation is. What I'm saying to you, it's a love there because you're encouraged so as to be who it is that you are, for the most part. But if you don't know who you are, that's gonna veer off and spiral off into different areas always with anything you involve yourself with. With gangs, it's just a little bit more drastic, a little bit more like crucial and and dangerous and vicious and venomous. You know what I mean? Like niggas, man, you know what I mean? In a blink of an eye like that, it could turn on you because of course you're fronting, right? But tomorrow, you feel me? You still there. You gonna come back outside unless you just be coming to the hood, and you can always just leave and not come back anytime you want. And then that's when you really more so, you know what I mean? Like questionable. Feel me? Like what are you coming over there for when you're not even from there? But that's cool too. It's magic to get into. That's what I'm saying. Even aside from crime, there's always that fellowship, right? And it's always just extreme. It's rugged type activities going on. It's raw, sort of just relentlessly dangerous and exciting shit happening. It's like, that's the whole part about that adrenaline. It's like, you gotta have a source for it because niggas, and I'm all over the place talking about this. That's why sometimes I don't be liking to think about it, but speak on it. But I did want to mention about how I'm not trying to act like it's the shit to do. But you gotta have somewhere to not have to be compromised. Because if you try to get into this corporate world, right, you either a student or you a criminal, girl. Right? There's no in between. There is an in between, but you're gonna have to be able to walk both lines. Otherwise, you're not gonna get nowhere. Is the whole part, girl. Right? That's why they say they want you to have to establish yourself as this and that so that you can be trusted or that you are reliable enough to bang this line, whether it's wholesome or otherwise. But as I was mentioning, there's also a wholesomeness to lawlessness, to criminal activities. You know what I mean? Like all of America is a criminal hub.
Yes, sir.
And she passed it on to a whole host of freedom fighters. But Randall Robinson was one. His great book, The Debt. He was the founder of Trans-Africa. He then carried on the reparations movement. Charles Ogletree tied it to Wall Street, given the vicious attack on black people in Tulsa. Went to court. We lost that battle, but we still were calling for reparation. Spilling over now with Charles Barron and Inez Barron in New York City, pushing through a bill that's still too weak, but it is a reparations bill. Same is true here in California. They're pushing through a bill, very important in that regard. But no, reparations for me is a matter of truth and justice. You tell the truth about how the nation became the nation. It was on stolen land, stolen labor. and that was profit gain unfairly, unjustly, and free from the vantage point of of the oppressor. And therefore, when you have that kind of damage, you need some kind of repair. And that's what reparations is. It's an attempt to repair the deep damage done given the violence and the unjust exploitation of people's bodies and labor. So that I can't see how anybody could have an allegiance to truth and justice and not therefore be for reparations.
Mm-hmm.
It could be Japanese, Jews, black folk, across the board.
You feel me? All of the American establishment, America was established off of the stealing of land to begin with. Then it was built from slave labor, which is unjust. Okay? Now, all of the different statutes and constituents, as well as pillars of what is deemed the American society or institution, that is the corporation that is the United States of America, right? Because you got the country or rather you got America, then you have the United States of America. And before America, it was called the republics. It was just republics. There was no full name for America until the second constitution, like I'm telling you. If you ain't even understanding, it wasn't even the forefathers that wrote the initial constitution that made it possible for them to even establish themselves separately on land. Because by the time America was established as a separate, or rather the new world basically was established, or not even established, but just was founded by the first people to come there who didn't necessarily take land from nobody. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody took land like that. But when they got over there and was flourishing, then other niggas still came over there and was trying to, was basically gangster and shit from niggas. So it's been gangsters, nigga, the whole time. You dig? It's nothing but crime going on. So it's like if you're not involved in one way, form, or fashion, basically you're being exploited, basically. Even if you do work a job somewhere, nigga, that corporation is run by the mob. The mob run the Vatican. The Vatican own all of the land on earth, or did just until recently, right? So that means whatever real estate, any business that's going on, it's got to have a deed for that land. That means that the Vatican is benefiting and profiting from whatever activities happening on the land just because it's anywhere on earth. And the mob is what control all of that. That's why the mob come from Italy.
You understand? Now, the concept is that people are wrongly under the concept that the European sons established this with the peregrinos that you call pilgrims, which means wanderers, that they established this government out of some moral principles and they established the United States. That's a lie. The United States already existed. Do you understand? The United States is a federation of the Moabite tribes that they fakedly call Indians, and we're not Indians. My grandmother is Blackfoot, that they call fakery Blackfoot. On my mother's side, they're Cherokee, that they call Kitawa. And I ain't Indian. I'm indigenous to the land, but I ain't Indian. One of the traps that a lot of the Shemnites fell into, because you have a lot of sellout. A lot of different tribes that sold out, but that didn't constitute an agreement with the nation. They fake it in history that it does. This is the reason why they had to murder so many of them. Do you understand? Separate the children from the mothers, because the mothers carried the principles of civilization and passed them down, because we had a matriarchal system. Do you understand? Like in the South areas, as an example, when they call Puerto Rico, they call it rich port, because the women carried the gold, and most of the time we'd put gold on the neck, and it would have no seam. You couldn't take it off, and the family wealth would be displayed by the women. Or we put coins and stuff on jewelry on their turbans, mix it into their turbans, and they wear bands around here, and they would cut their heads off and cut their arms off for the gold. and they call it rich port. That's how Puerto Rico got its name. And they're Moors, mixed Moors. They mix Moors with Europeans and Chinese. Do you understand? So one of the problems with us is because we've been mixed, is that our concepts are wrong, and we keep thinking that we're different people when we're really not. We're just expanded of the same expanded family. And the base language here on this side is part Aramaic, Hebrew, and what you call Algonquian, that they call Indian different languages, and what they call Moorish Latin, that they keep calling falsely Spanish, which it is not. It's Latin, Moorish Latin, multiple dialects. And so one of the deals with the Inquisitionists, when they merged their kingdoms and defeated the Moors and started conquering the West, is one of the commitments of the White Camellia, the Klan, and the Knights of Columbus was to wipe us out of history. Do you understand? This is the reason why you cannot go and find the linear history. But that's also why you have all these secret societies that consequently and curiously keep wearing the Moorish fez. And you never figured it out. Do you understand? Then they have badges all across their car with the Moorish star upside down, with Eastern Star. Then they have the compass on the square and the pyramid. They have Allah and Mecca and Morocco and Medina, and they'll name all the lodges after a mother, woman, the matriarchal systems, etc. And then rewrite the history and tell the people that they came from someplace else. These are the same people that thought the world was flat. But if you believed it, that's fine. But we were here for not 1,000 years, for multiple thousands of years. That flag, that Moroccan flag with that 5-pointed green star, been flying over here in government structure for over 10,000 years. Before the great drownings, yeah, they had drowning first, and the great burns and burning of the temples of Luxor, like in Mizraim, that they call Egypt. It's not Egypt, it's Mizraim, etc., that they call Alexandria today, was the largest library in the world, and they match it with the Library of Congress here being now the largest library in the world. So, and they have the history of all the countries here too. So one of the keys is that Moors cannot be deported. See, it's sort of like one of the conflicts that people have here is that they're in the frame of mind that we're all right, and we start from here. And so whenever they go forward, it always becomes jumbled or confusing because it becomes nonlinear, you know, and you're always playing detective. And then nobody's talking. And then those who are talking want to commit you to some kind of oath or want you to sell your life, your arm to them. You know what I mean? Then it's a secret. Get the point? This is the problem that the scholars and the world governments had with Noble Drew Ali, because he came and he stepped on the Roman seal. He stepped on the Roman seal.
The Roman seal?
That's a code. See, the deal was that this basic information was not to be found out by you.
Right.
The commitment was that this general body of information would be hidden for at least 300 years, maybe 1,000. That accepted social concept, though not limited to, would be revealed to you in the William Lynch letter along the James River, when they talked about using the mental warfares of turning the men against the women, the young against the old, distorting the family. But there's more to that. It also had to do with the psychology and the knowledge of how to distress the womb and how to make a slave. By stressing the womb of the woman and controlling the womb, then you control the nation. The problem is that they cannot deport us from anywhere. No matter what negatives come about due to the social corruption here, they cannot deport us. So they have to continue to build jails. Do you understand? Because the wars between the Moors and the Roman nations have been stagnating civilization. Meaning it's no different than the position that we're in now, with all the lies that have been told amongst government and they're caught in a catch-22. They're going to create all-out war, a whole global war, or they're going to tell the truth. They're trying not to tell the truth. If they don't tell the truth, you're going to have chaos on this planet like you've never seen it.
You're right.
Do you understand?
You're right.
And it's going to be because of a lie.
It's already started.
Yes, but it's going to be because of a lie.
That's right.
The lie is being exposed.
Yes. Now that's where we are. That's where the problem is. And the problem that you have is that you have Asiatics and Europeans that have been set up in the political arena being in two different camps. But in fact, you actually have, in the real truth history, you have Asiatics and Europeans who agreed to this structure. And then you had Europeans who were undermining it. So this is where your matrix is. So whenever you have an issue before any court and you want to argue,
from here to equality, which is the most powerful text that I know in defense of reparations, from here to equality. It's a co-authored text. It's a powerful text. But people say to me, well, does that mean somehow that you going tribal with black folk? No, I'm committed to truth and justice. I begin on the chocolate side of town, and I want to make sure that black people are treated fairly and justly, just like anybody else. And so that, for me, means that we've got and we don't need any more reparations, commissions, and investigations. We've had enough of those. We need will. We need to be willing to act. We need to be willing to execute. Now, if we don't have the power, then we have executive orders, because you don't have enough power below. But if you're actually in a powerful position, you authorize it yourself and see how far it goes. But it's in the name of truth and justice, in the name of a people's humanity, dignity, and labor that has been so thoroughly called into question every generation for the last 400 years. But my program is very much one of abolition. You see, abolition has always been the main theme of the Black Freedom Movement. The abolition of slavery, that Douglas and Tubman. The abolition of Jim and Jane Crow, that's Ida B. Wells. I want the abolition of poverty. I want the abolition of homelessness and unhousing. I want the abolition of unsafetyness in our communities. How do we come up with systems of public safety so that people can walk the streets without fear? One way you do that is make sure people have the right to housing, a right to health care, make sure that people have basic income, access to resources, then the flourishing of the small businesses. In a capitalist society in which we live, even though 80% of the economic activity is small business, everybody talks about the monopolies and oligopolies because they have the most wealth and the most power. You see, so how do you get them to not just share the wealth, but how do you democratize their power? See, that's the big move, because they'll cut your neck off for that, but they can't cut your neck off of thousands and thousands and thousands of folk. That's why you have to have a movement. You can't be out there by yourself. But, and the same is true in terms of being an anti-imperialist. I know this is coming to the end, but see, I want to head the American empire in order to dismantle the American empire. See, we got 800 military units around the world. We've got 130 special operations activities in over 100 countries. And 62 cents for every $1 in discretionary budget goes to the military. So you basically have a war economy.
Yes, sir.
Basically. And the aim is to dominate every nook and cranny of the world. That's an empire. It's not a nation. It's an empire. And people say, oh, America's an idea. America's an empire. That's different than an idea. Yes, indigenous peoples. It was their land. That's what empires do. They steal land, they push people off, then they create their own territories and they expand. That's what empires do. There's been 70 empires in the history of the species going back to our beginnings in Africa. The United States is number 68. And every empire comes and goes. And every empire usually undergoes internal implosion based on military overreach, corruption of elites, impotence of citizens, and looking for a tyrant as a way of restoring order. That's America 2024.
Yes, sir.
Right there, you see.
right? So that means whatever real estate, any business that's going on, it's got to have a deed for that land. That means that the Vatican is benefiting and profiting from whatever activities happening on the land just because it's anywhere on earth. And the mob is what control all of that. That's why the mob come from Italy, right? And the mob came to America firstly, but they mixed with other niggas though, cuz, and was getting it in with niggas, right? That for the most part, they had beef. The niggas did not match, but then until they did match, then that's when there was this new sort of other type of realm and underworld that was created. But it's still controlled, right? It's still kind of like managed by those that's got the most influence, because of course they're not going to turn over the control, because first of all, that would actually mean that it will be filtered out into something even more flourishing. For one. Why? Because we're not going to settle on advantages. We want liberation. That's how gangs started. Beginning was a revolution, right? We had to stand up against the police. The police was gangster in the hood, homie. So niggas band together. These were students. These were scholars that band together, nigga. But not all scholars is nerds or fucking weenies or wimps, cuz, is the part. Just because you got power, which is knowledge, don't mean you can't have strength, which is health. Just because you got power, which is knowledge, don't mean you can't have strength, which is health, right? And discipline as well as skill level. Yes? As far as exchange. So as to sharpen the iron that you're surrounded by. Because you're doing one thing or the next. You contributing or you're compromising. You contributing or you compromising. And it's kind of mixed up because it's like a lot of it is a compromise. You know, a lot of it is at risk for being, of course, corrupting. But that goes for everything is what I'm saying. And even more so when you don't have some sort of, like, respectable structure. Because the structure that it was born out of only has so many elements of respectability to it. Right? Especially you don't have your own land. Right? We own somebody else's land defending drug markets. At this point, that's not how it starts, but when you get into it, that's where it leads to. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty to some extent, because that's the whole reason why they allow it to operate. Otherwise, niggas will rise up and become a threat towards influence. You know what I'm saying? Against over anybody else. But that's already happened though. Because the culture is just that authentic. More so than not. Right? At least that's how it should remain. Because it began as something, as an alternative, right? Even if you go into school, they try to talk down to you at school. They try to make you feel like you need them, and otherwise you're gonna get swallowed up by the streets, or you're gonna be in jail, or you're gonna be homeless, or you're gonna, you know what I mean, have to hide and run from thugs and those that have access to you, because you don't know how to stand up for yourself without having whatever money to escape them. You understand? When it ain't about escaping nothing. It's about you making a choice as far as, it's about you making a decision as far as how far you're going to take the path that you choose. And then that goes for everything. You can start getting involved with whatever sorts of groups, and you just want to be around. You want to be down. You want to show that you're hard and all this extra shit. When you shouldn't be down to be hard. You end up being down because you hard already, right? And that's just not nothing that can be changed. So it's like, that's going to be something that you connect with, that those that also ain't no punk is going to fucking resonate with. Now, this punk activity that ends up happening, right? That gets through the cracks because these niggas got folks that actually do bang. And so if you fuck with them, even though they not really about that life, they still trying to, you know what I mean? They still all in the mix even more so, because you gotta have somebody, you gotta be able to deflect whatever source of attention to, for one. So you gotta allow some shit to happen. Like I said, it's either in you or it ain't, regardless. You know what I'm saying? All your cousins and uncles and your pops and your brothers and your mama might even, you know what I mean, be stone cold, just, you know what I mean, devoted straight to the bone. Blood in, blood out. But that don't mean that that's something that you're gonna be able to identify yourself as. It just is kind of like in between. For the most part, you get, you know what I mean, it rubs off on you. Like with me, when I was coming up, I was around all type of wild shit in the streets. So it's something that I picked up. Don't get me wrong. Like every hoodster that I knew or that influenced me wasn't unblemishable, you know. But for the most part, I was around a lot of different things. Like I said, my mom was kind of like encircled in it. I see my mama whooping on females. And it's not, she wasn't necessarily from that gang, but she wasn't necessarily not from it either. But that's the whole point I'm saying. Like, you can bang to yourself. And anybody question you, it really depends on where your heart is at. Like, if you ever by yourself, it's gonna have to be a reason why anybody would ever bang on you. No matter where you at, it's just all in your spirit. You know what I mean? Like, if you made your decision, you feel me, and your perspective is extended as opposed to so immediate, then those energies not even gonna necessarily contrast with you, because it's only so far that it's gonna take itself before it comes back to the other homies having something to say or something to do with it. And that's another beautiful part of it, but that's also the same part of it that can get you caught up to a certain extent. But that's all about if you're the type of nigga to get caught up or not, right? But then it's just like, it's cold because a lot of niggas don't lead a hood, right? Ain't no reason for them to lead a hood. They wouldn't even fit in nowhere else because they're just that raw. And it's like, it's fucked up because it's like, that's our military, huh? You know what I'm saying? And don't nobody, it's not for no money. I mean, these are hustlers, so you gonna get your bread regardless, and that's where it ends up going, because it's like, you on the street all day, not all day, but you always got something to answer to, right? Everything happening every day, so you can't lay your head without your pistol, first of all, and then your pillow. While you get up, you gotta sleep with one eye open, just in case, or whatever might end up popping off. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can kind of relax and lounge or whatever. You can chill to a certain extent, but you already know it gets real out of nowhere, even within your own family members. But you ain't finna just stay centralized in that one area, because that will make you more of a target, first of all. So you're gonna have to be active, is what the word is. You're gonna have to be involved. You're gonna have to be mobilized. You're gonna have to be mobile. You know what I mean? When it comes to on the block and in the streets of Los Angeles, which there's no other source of anything comparable to that. Because what you got in that Los Angeles, you got projects, and you got basically blocks where it's a little bit more spread out. Like, you go to some areas, it's like you are affiliated in one group or the next, or one gang or the next. You know, whether it is that you do join the police force, or you join the workforce, or or you actually get initiated into a particular group that bang whatever towards the street, you know. But it's not about necessarily the street. It's about the choice that you make. It's about the path that you walk. So what I'm saying is basically, my niggas know I'm about what I'm about, and not to question me or nothing, because I'm accepting. You know what I mean? I'm not judgmental. I'm not a critical person like that, to where I'm like, okay, whatever it is you're trying to do, I don't need to even know all of that. But if however it can involve me, it's going to be in a developmental sort of, from a developmental angle, to where it's going to be better the more time we spend it doing it. Even if it is crime, even if it is something that'll get, you know what I'm saying, dangerous. You know what I mean? So we're going to do it next to the next level every time we get involved with it. Otherwise, we spinning a circle, we spinning our wheels, and that's never necessary, right? Because you got to always be able to have a drop on your enemies, quote unquote enemies. You always got to have, you know what I mean, an unpredictable angle that you coming from, and always got to have a backup route. You know, you got to check your alleys everywhere you at. Me, shit, nigga, I never take the same route twice, homie. I never take the same route twice, and but by then, that's helped me to be able to see exactly what route I have taken, and exactly the layout of the very route that I'm taking. I ain't got to go there but one time. I can be in a new place, in a new country, just because of how I walk through the streets. If you can't walk through the streets with your head high, nigga, then you're not ready for the world, right? And you're going to be taken advantage of either way. But at the same time, now you're going to know yourself less. If it was to be to where it's okay, you confronted your environment. It's not even about that. Like, if you're scared, you're scared. But fear is not an element. You know? It shouldn't be. And that's what's the one thing that does get weeded out and filtered out is the fear.
Yeah.
You see, because even the worst got the best in them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question of whether it's cultivated and accented. And it goes the other way. Even the best, Martin King, he got the worst in him too. He got the worst. You ask some of the sisters now, he ain't living the straight and narrow life all the time.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So that he got the worst too. That's human. We got to be mature enough to be able to see the best and the worst in all of us. But Martin's fundamental disposition and orientation is so much toward love and service for the people that he sets a high standard. You know what I mean? High standard. Malcolm the same way. Fannie Lou Hamer the same way. But the worst thing we could ever say to young people is to compare them only to the best of the past.
So does impartial of that, when you look at the greatness almost automatically comes with defects, because some of those defects are what makes the greatness.
Ooh, that's a deep point, brother.
So you can't remove the defects, because then you don't get the greatness.
Exactly.
And we don't give enough grace in that understanding, right? When I look at humans, I look at humans.
Absolutely.
If there was one to be raised specifically for the purpose of leading and producing the vision, let's say the one aspect he has is just to come up with the best vision possible, right? He's an analyst, a designer, an architect, a thinker. But in order for that person to be said person, he has to be brought up in conditions, right, that will allow him to be that way. But what happens is possibly because he's over-focused on the manifestation of the vision, some of his humanity is lost, right? Because he believes, I only have one point that I'm going to measure myself by, and it's whether I can produce that vision, where goodness and, righteousness may be another man's journey of goodness and contribution, just being a good citizen to society, not harming anybody. Mine is producing this vision, and the things that I need to stay stimulated on that path, have to be given so that the end result justify the means.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure if we will, maybe in the future, but we're not at that level of maturity to look at what's necessary. I look at Donald Trump, and many people, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. I see people that say they'll vote for Joe Biden if he was laying up in respiratory tubes. They don't care. People will vote for Donald Trump regardless of any moral issues that they have with him. They can find a way to resolve that within their spirit to say, I'm going to be justified regardless because I believe he's the leader that we need in this time. But we've not been able to do that when it comes to black leaders. And all I say is, give us the same grace that you give when it's time for you to vote for white leadership.
Oh, that's a deep point.
Now you got to go in the past and think about how you thought about all of the black leaders and the way that you can immediately resolve this and say, I don't care if this man is old, senile, I don't care if he raised his family, I don't care about none of that. I see the point of his leadership. You can go to Trump base. I don't care about moral implications, convictions. I don't care about none of his past. I see the point of his leadership. So if we're saying that we're at this mature level to see the point of leadership, regardless of character, then we also have to give that same right grace to all blacks leadership throughout time.
Across the board. And when you think about it, though, you see, there's never been a black man in America who has been directly connected to genocide against the people.
Never.
Oh, what is it now? 11,000 precious Palestinians, babies murdered in a matter of months? See, that's Biden. And you got black folk running around acting like somehow he the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Hey, that's genocide.
Yeah.
And Trump would do the same thing. He say, finish the job. You see, that's beyond gangster. We need another language when you talk about rationalizing genocide against a people like that, you see. And yet, you're right, you know, you got folks who, well, I can overlook that. That's just genocide. But he's my man. Hey, get off the plantation. You just tied to your Lord. You tied to your master. And the same is true with the Trump people, you know, and whatever color. But you see the black folk with Trump.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of black Trumpies.
You say, well, absolutely, what's going on? Now, on the other hand, it's also true that you can be a truth teller. People say, well, it's true that I acknowledge that Biden is enabling genocide. He denies that it's genocide, which is a lie. It is genocide. But I'll vote for him anyway for these reasons. Well, at least they're telling part of that truth and they're moving on. But when it comes to black leaders can use one word that they disagree with. They remember that for 25 years.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Innocent folk getting killed with 2,000-pound bombs. I mean, so that your point about the double standards and the hypocrisy is real. But I would say this, though, brother, that in the end, though, it really has to do with what kind of human being you're really choosing to be. Back to philosophia, philosophy, the love of wisdom. And one of the first things the love of wisdom accents is virtues, not just values. Virtues are much deeper than values because that has to do with something you deeply inculcate in your behavior habitually. And the enabling virtue of any other virtue is courage. If you're a coward, you ain't gonna be of too much use for good. In the Christian scripture, be not afraid 365 times. Because God can't use no coward.
Yes, sir.
If you're a coward, the devil just break dancing, smiling. Come on. You who I work with.
Yes, sir.
You see. So then beyond the courage, though, you got to have compassion. Because the gangster could have, and the mafia could have folk who are courageous. And I give them credit. They taking a risk. Very much so.
But at the same time, now you're gonna know yourself less. If you was to be to where it's okay, you're confronted your environment. It's not even about that. Like, if you're scared, you're scared. But fear is not an element. You know? It shouldn't be. And that's what's the one thing that does get weeded out and filtered out is the fear. Because eventually you're gonna outgrow it. You know? Even if the more scared you are, the more shit you're gonna get into. Right? But then when it is that you already have conquered your fear and you establish yourself as with the shit, then you have like different bigger sort of drama. You know what I mean? Because niggas' emotions be involved, niggas be, you know what I mean? Niggas be really trapped in the life because of a lot of different elements. So it's like you can't necessarily even really be centralized anywhere at all. You always gotta be on the go and able to be other places, right? And not even so known for your connection to any particular area unless it's got that air of respect there, right? Because it's only gonna be only so many particular sorts of niggas involved with certain shit. Otherwise, they not welcome there. Okay? You know what I'm saying? You're not even gonna be able to be involved. You're not gonna be able to get to thrash like that. You're not gonna really be able to mix like that when the realer shit start happening with those that are, like I said, more acquainted, because of course they brought a respectable sense of honorable nigga exchange to it. You know, they wasn't looking out just for themselves. You gotta always have yourself in check, firstly, but what's the next step after that? It's teaching those, that's, you know, it's assisting those that's assisting you, because you always gonna have assistance or opposition. No matter what, you can't get around it. No matter how self-sufficient you are, you're gonna find assistance. You're gonna find appreciation as well as support and contribution to your contribution. So that just grows in an organic direction, and you just gotta, and that's that part of, you know, that honorable exchange, or not. You know, nobody perfect, but at the same time, you're being built. And so, yeah, it's already wicked though. It starts off wicked because that's where we are in this life. It began as a response to intimidation and terrorism. Right now, not everybody that ended up getting involved had the same resolve or outlook. However, it kind of spiraled out of hand to a certain extent because of the allure of the very activity in itself, you know, as well as the reach of it, the applicability of it, the relevance of all that was happening and does end up happening, right? That's where, this is where it's happening. This is where niggas is expressing, right? This is where this is the most freest area, right? And the police don't even come over here, right? But if you can't handle yourself over here, you might not leave from over here. Especially if it is not that you stay over here. And even if you stay over here, you might end up having to get from up out of the way by the time it get really popping in certain little corners and pockets of the hood. You know? But then the niggas is left over there on their own. And so it's like, you know, they can get really chewed up and ate up by the darkness there. But like I said, they growing too within that aspect or within that construct. It began as a response, and even if it is that you on the block, right, you gonna live somewhere. It's either gonna be the suburbs or it's gonna be the slums, right? And if you don't have already enough money, that means that you gotta try to put yourself in a position to advance it, to upgrade to a more liberating situation.
But that's true for Wall Street. It's true for Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
It's true for the streets.
Yeah. Machiavellianism.
That's the Machiavellian we started with. So the question becomes, well, how do we get access to the best of the past? When you get access to Du Bois and Mary Clyde Bethune and Malcolm X and Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, they ain't talking about selling out. They ain't talking about money.
Right.
They're talking about freedom. They're talking about dignity. They're talking about self-determination, self-defense, and self-projection of the best of who we are. So you got connection with the past, intervening in the present for the future to look different. The future's not going to be just a repetition of the present. where a future where black dignity is respected, it's going to look very different than the black America that we know. Oakland going to look different.
Yes, sir.
Southside Chicago going to look different.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not to say we don't have pockets of it. We do. You all, work you're doing right now, courageous, visionary, but it's not as pervasive as we would like.
Yes, sir.
Because the love that we have for our people means we got to love them, correct them, challenge them, affirm them, and never allow them to fall prey to wholesale illusion. And if we tell black folk right now, this is the best we can do, or the standard you all are setting is the standard that all the other young folk are saying, no, that's not true. You all are setting a high standard. And everybody else has to come to terms with those standards, even as you all continually learning and growing and maturing like everybody else.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it would be like us playing basketball. Michael Jordan show up. We say, oh, shoot, he's just like everybody else. No, he ain't.
Right.
That brother setting the standard.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Curtis Mayfield setting the standard. Aretha sets a standard. They ain't like everybody else. They human like everybody else, but they set a standard. So is true in politics. So is true in economics. So is true in spirituality. So is true in our relationships with each other and so forth. And all of us are going to fall short at some time.
Yes, sir.
All of us do.
I look at some of the most prudent issues to me. Number one is a complete reformation of what we call culture and what's represented as. But number two, if we look at black men in America, we have the worst statistics categorically, right? Health,
Right.
and economics, right? And mental health, right? And all these different categories. But when it comes to politics, it's not even on the agenda as a huge issue, right? I personally know so many black men living in current crisis at a percentage that's so high, right? That I couldn't pursue another agenda as important without addressing this one. Right? Because I see it in my brothers, I see it in my uncles, my fathers, my cousins, my peers, people that I grew up with that I know. And I'm like, bro, this is a crisis. The level of issues, right, is way too high. And
that's real, though.
I've never seen a cancel march for black men. Never. I've never heard a politician specifically address, issues in the black community as it relates to the black man. So what this does is it puts you against the wall to say, okay, well, I got to do this by myself. Now, when you by yourself, right, it gets you to, I was looking at black nihilism before this. You end up in this space of despair that nothing matters. Nobody's coming to help you. I need to help myself, but do I even have the strength? Because that internal self-resilience and confidence, if that's not there, and number one, when we see it, it's an outlier mentality. So it does represent the greatness, that spectrum, that's the highest standard, but it's an outlier. It's not what's common. The common practice today, right, is despair, falling to their weakness. I meet so many black men across America. Like I speak at a lot of different nonprofits and black nonprofits, and the black men that I speak to, they have such a basic level of need, right? And that basic need is a fathering, right? The lack of fathering. My brother Blue Pill asked me to look up the Moynihan report, right? In the early 60s about the black families.
65 Daniel Moynihan, yes.
But I found some interesting stuff in there as he was talking about the pathology of the family, right? And specifically, he was talking about the matriarch of the black family and how no other culture in society has dealt with the matriarch, right, as their primary leadership as they're trying to build wealth and build up their society, right? And seeing black people as a nation. And he spoke on how that was going to create an undue strain on the mother and an undue strain on the father and the children, and how that imbalance of, number one, having, today we got a crazy baby mama, baby daddy culture, which is people that have less resources, access to capital and education, having more children than they have, wealth and reserve to actually take care of and raise.
Right.
And so he was explaining how in every other culture, the middle class have less children. So they're not going to go past like 3 or 4 because they don't want to put an undue strain on the new wealth that they're just starting to gain. Right. And so I thought about that in our community is that we don't family plan enough. The Black family is not at the crust of this is the core of our issue, because the Black family then becomes a way to where power and wealth and knowledge can be passed over time. You can't plan in time unless you have a family. I have a son. I teach him. He has a mission in life. He passed on to carry the family name, right? But if I got 10 sons, 3 of them in prison, right? One of them depressed, one of them dead and gone, right? There's an undue mental strain on this one, just thinking about the dynamics of the family and where he fits in that, right? And then when he does get wealth, that wealth is not solely based on his mission of bringing up, but maintaining those who don't have.
Yeah.
Right. And normally that's what happens when there's somebody who is an outlier in the family doesn't rally around. Individualism sets in and it becomes competition. And then there's this cannibalism that's in the family to where y'all start fighting each other comparatively because the needs have never been set. You can't raise that many children and give them the proper amount of time to nurture their needs so that once they're on their own, then they say, okay, now that I don't have the needs of, of feeling significant, right? Because I wasn't told enough that I was somebody.
Right.
They can focus on growth, developing skills, right?
That's right.
That's where the wealth conversation comes in. What are your thoughts around wealth? Because I know, if you can preface, we're starting off with breaking down your ideas about capitalism and socialism. How can socialism work for us today? And where does capitalism fit in that spirit of, being able to create our own and do for self?
I mean, part of the wickedness of the worst of capitalism is that it puts a premium on greed. And I think greed is wicked. It's cold and callous. It produces cold and callous people vis-a-vis other people who are suffering. It's as if you have no connection, don't need to care, don't be concerned. You see, but what socialism does at its best, because the worst of socialism can be ugly too in terms of repression and domination. Socialism at its best puts a premium on cooperation. Even the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he talked about economics, it was what? Cooperative economics. W.B. Du Bois, they don't have the same religion, don't have the same ideology. What was he talking about? Cooperative economics. Even a Marxist like Huey Newton.
Yes, sir.
Huey, what you talking about? Communalism, cooperative economics. What does that mean? That just means that you got to get beyond egoistic greed and selfishness and want to produce, be disciplined, but also share. Also be concerned about others who might not have the same kinds of gifts or energy or gusto that you have. And therefore you're concerned about a community, a us mentality, rather than just a me mentality. Now that's why I don't really spend too much time with the isms in a way. I mean, capitalism is in fact obsessed with short-term profit. You got a fossil fuel industry right now that's so obsessed with short-term profit, they'd rather have the whole planet go up rather than them stop gaining assets of short-term profit. You say, then that's egoism that's calling into question the condition of whether human beings even exist or not.
Yes, sir.
But the same is true with enslavement of us. It was not just hatred of black people, but it was a hatred tied to greed, all that free labor. We producing more profits than any other system in the world. Not just in the United States. Trillions of dollars. Then that was out of greed. And the average black man and woman dying at 27 years old, they didn't give a dang. Just keep reproducing them or bringing them back in. And of course, in the other parts of the New World, it was really much more importation than reproduction. You see, in Haiti and other places as well. Just let them die off and just keep bringing it. Keep the ships coming. That ain't nothing but greed, man. That's sick at a pathological level. And yet it's been so crucial in terms of affecting us. So what am I saying? What I'm saying, though, is that we need access to resources, food, shelter, and then, of course, quality education, safety, And it's true. If you take jobs with a living wage out of any community, I don't care what color they are, if you have guns and drugs overflowing, coming from the outside, it ain't being produced from the inside. For what? Money, big profit. No matter where it is, you're going to have crime. You're going to have addiction. You're going to have unbelievable contestation and tension. That's true anywhere, you see. But you remember now the anthology that Haki Mahibute and Maulana Karenga put together for the Million Man March. Because I was blessed to be a part of that. We traveled all around the country. Ben Chambers, myself, and Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they put the book together. There you got reflection on black men. Different political, ideological, analytical points of view. Because they had all get Manny Marable, the great Marxist, you know, who died. He was my dear brother. He died at 60. You got his voices in there and all the other voices, got my little voice in there too. But that is a crucial text.
Yes.
Then you got Tavis's text, The Covenant with Black men. Now the new version's coming out next month. You see, August 15th. I was just with Tavis 2 days ago and bringing that back again.
Yes, sir.
Now that's about the community as a whole, but black men very important because we crucial part of the community, the sisters too, and the children too, but very important. So but also I want to mention Elijah Anderson. I don't know if you got a chance to read any book by Elijah Anderson. It always focuses on the plight of young black brothers in the hood and other places, but especially in the hood, and how we've come up with ways of responding economically, socially, what's coming at us. And then, of course, the worst, which is killing each other, disrespecting each other, not trusting each other, not learning how to work together, not learning how to affirm each other, you see. But you got to keep track of the best and the worst. And the older brothers like me, you know, I always had to be reminded when I speak to young, brilliant, courageous, visionary brothers like you, of a younger generation. You see, I can't compare you solely to the best of my generation. Because I had the worst of my generation too. You see, you represent the best, but there's the worst.
Yes, sir.
We had the best and the worst. Every brother wasn't Malcolm and Martin. I can tell you that right now. You see what I mean?
But when we think of the past, we go to the best to represent.
Exactly. People the best. You got brothers in the barbershop talking about, yeah, you know, Martin and Malcolm represent me. No, Johnson. No, Roosevelt. What were you doing at night? Well, yeah. How many times you go to jail other than police messing with you? For the people. 0.
Yeah.
Right, this is where this is the most freest area, right? And the police don't even come over here, right? But if you can't handle yourself over here, you might not leave from over here. Especially if it is not that you stay over here. And even if you stay over here, you might end up having to get from up out of the way by the time it get really popping. It's certain little corners and pockets of the hood. You know? But then the niggas is left over there on their own. And so it's like, you know, they can get really chewed up and ate up by the darkness there. But like I said, they growing too within that aspect or within that construct. It began as a response. And even if it is that you on the block, right, you gonna live somewhere, it's either gonna be the suburbs or it's gonna be the slums, right? And if you don't have already enough money, that means that you gotta try to put yourself in a position to advance it, to upgrade to a more liberating situation, to where you're not obligated to subject yourself to whatever other control system or established program or formula, right? For the most part, like I told you, even when it comes to corporate businesses, the mob was around before any corporation. All corporations is the mob, nigga. The mob was around before any corporations, cuz. The mob is the corporations, cuz. This is the facts. So now, how deep did that go? Yeah, man, that's a whole brotherhood in secrecy. Like, it's like you're born into that. That come down to your genetics, girl. Okay, just like the law system with the Jews. Okay, so you got the business part, then you got the law part. So then when you have business law, that you have now Jewish mobsters. Okay, now as far as a hoodster, there's no way that he can even really touch that life and really live through it. You know? Unless there's that element of honor and respect there, and even then, you only gonna satisfy so many. You only gonna please so many that's really born that way. Got that blood in their veins. That Italian blood in their veins. Got that Jewish blood in their veins. Now, if you have a family with an Italian and a family with a Jewish person, and then you have some gangbanging ass hoodster sons, that'd be different. But even then, they're gonna have to be able to blend in both worlds, is what I'm telling you. Buddy boss.
And we start arguing issues of trying to get out of certain situations when they never had it in the first place that you give it to them. Do you understand? Meaning that for law to exist, if I make a claim on you or against you, if I make a claim on you or against you, what you should be arguing to me is not necessarily the substance of the matter. If I say to you, you know, we're really upset with you because you owe $5.50 and 2 bags of popcorn. You say, well, that's kind of high. And, you know, I don't feel as though that's fair. When what you should be arguing is not that. But number one, where did I derive my authority and enter it into the record? That's number one. Because before I can claim a right or an authority over you, the only way that your birthright can be given to me in any sovereign capacity, if you're in agreement with me through your parents or through some organized system government prior to me, that which I'm by bloodline obligated to and didn't dissolve, well, your birthright is your own. Do you understand? You're the law. Do you understand? And if I impose that on you, then I'm maintaining slavery, which is a violation of civilization, which gives you a right to take that person's head, really. And any other civilized person has the right and authority in assisting you in international law to take that person's head. Do you understand? So if I say to you that you're in violation of something, what you're supposed to say to me says, you're not even arguing that. Well, if you're making a claim, introduce it into the evidence before people of my own national peers. According to national or international law, introduce the evidence and the complaint and the complaint, right? And see if it's validated by the people. And then they'll decide whether something goes with this or not. Right now, I'm not making any claims, you know, or counterclaims one way or another. Not making any pleas or anything. There's no pleas. Do you understand? Now, for me to have a claim that to be valid, number one, past them. First issue is your status. Can I raise this? Has this been done over? All right. Now, and keep this in mind. And while I'm talking to you, I'm going to explain to you also why the game is played. The color is actually political sorcery, if you understand it. Because nationality is where the birthright is. And for the law to be governing you, then you must be part of a nation. Am I correct? Then if you say if you're Russian, you're not saying that you're what? Asiatic? Because we're all Asiatic. But that's not the point. Russia is a part of Asia. Am I correct?
Yes.
Below it is India. Am I correct? Which ain't India. That's Hindustan. Right?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Oh, so where's your nationality card? So how you gonna be talking the law of a land that gives authority, and you haven't even proven who you are? Because this is a jurisdiction of diversity.
why you have to prove who you are. You have God-given birthright.
Can I go to Russia? Can I go to Misraim? Can I go to Saudi Arabia? Can I go to different parts of the world? Many of where I'll be accepted as one of the people, unless by accent or by culture, they recognize that I come from another area. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And start demanding issues of law, and I haven't proven who I am. The first issue is status. Who am I? So now we've established who we are, right? Just like if we're coming in the issue of controversy, right? Just well, as an example, just like say, for instance, in any issue of legal or lawful issue, when you present yourself, that's really status, although they've corrupted it. So you present yourself. Now, the reason why, quote unquote, as it has been in United States processes of law, why Negroes, blacks, and coloreds could not represent themselves in court, because Negro, black, and colored are corporate fictions. And if the person agreed that they are that, then, they have a right to make that contract. See, because government's not there to interfere with your right to make contract. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you claim to be something that someone else coined to name their chattel, and you agree to that, logically you come under Christian Black Code 1724, and it's no problem because you agree to that. Because there's no such people listed on this planet anywhere in the human family. Does not exist. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So, but there are laws that regulate such chattel or such things. Can't call it human because it's not part of the human family. Never made a law, contract, constitution, so therefore you cannot bring it before a free national court and argue issues of law because it doesn't apply to it. Now, because a person agrees to be it, that's on them. If they're ignorant of their birthright, whether somebody took it from them or whether they agreed to it, both the effect is the same. Now, of course, you can get maybe the family that enslaved their family line to come up and speak for them, because they can't speak for themselves, because they're barred from law. They're in a position of no judicio standi, have no standing in law. Of course, if they don't know that, and then somebody gives them, on this other hand, some documents that make statements about law that really sound, this is really deep. And he's really got to do this, he got to give me a sandwich according to this. And you start arguing all that, oh yeah, I got this. Just wait till I tell him he's got to give me a cheese sandwich. Oh. And you talking big stuff and they still taking to some fraud jurisdiction you ain't figured out because you agreed to be Negro, black, and colored because they have no standing in law. This is the reason why they want to hide the Moorish connection, because the United States Republic came out of the dissolution of the Moroccan government here, United States of Morocco. Do you understand? That's why the United States of America here in the central part has no national name. Like here you got the United States of Mexico, you got the United States of Brazil, right? You got the United States of El Salvador, let's see, El Salvador, a couple more that are United States. So you have a lot of United States of America. This is the reason why they'll just use the name or the word America. And if you never stop and think, you never recognize that that's not attached to anything here. They'll claim jurisdiction here, and they'll claim jurisdiction here. And they'll claim jurisdiction here, and they'll claim jurisdiction here. And they'll claim jurisdiction here. They'll claim everywhere.
But you know what they do?
They bring the law of the seas because they don't have no jurisdiction. They don't have no law. And they bring it on the land, and you're not debating it because you are assuming that they have jurisdiction, and they're assuming the jurisdiction that you give them.
So in other words, what you're saying then, under the United States, all that yellow is, it's all under the admiralty law.
It's exactly correct. They're pirates.
Oh, wait a minute. Then that explains the example. We went to Chinatown for dinner, right?
Yes.
For a meal.
And I mean, you try to go to school, right? And they want to downplay you. They want to act like you feel me, that you's a weenie or whatever if it is that you want to read or whatever. They're like, and then these are not just the students. Sometimes the teachers want to undermine your edge. And don't get me wrong, I had great teachers that actually understood the challenges, and not necessarily so much of the challenge, just the dynamics. You know, the sides of it, to where it's like, for the most part, niggas are illiterate, cause to a certain extent. Not all my niggas is illiterate, but the ones that's can always just go do whatever else is generally just gonna do whatever else, because first of all this education that we're receiving is a construct in itself, so as to demean your majesty, right? Your potential to erect as well as a foundation, an individual empire, nigga, outside of whatever mob, outside of whatever law. But it's gonna take you being able to operate in these worlds enough as an individual, as an individualized entity, contrasting these things. That means that you're gonna at least have to be aware of, be informed about them. You're not gonna have to necessarily be informed, but it's gonna take you, of course, establishing your own structure, basically. And shit, man, that's gonna take organization. That's gonna take cooperation. And that's gonna lead to the building of understanding even if it's between the establishment. And that understanding is gonna lead into a now exchange of principles, basically, and codes. Right? And codes take what is called codifying, through whatever language it end up having to be, even if it's sign language, even if it's unspoken silent, it's going to be a structure sort of systemized, in and out to it. And that's it just naturally lead to a fucking. And unfortunately, you're gonna, eventually one of somebody, even if it is your sons or your cousins or somebody that's not necessarily so openly affiliated with you, that can come back and speak with you in private to learn the conversation, learn the language. That shit is happening in the outside world. In order for you to be able to move comfortably, for you to be able to move effectively towards building something, right? We have this idea where, we can be all right for ourselves, but that's only going to last for so long because there's other people on Earth, and nobody is staying in just one place. And even if they are, that place is not always going to be able to be where it's at. So it'd be wise to be able to have a places. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not at that place, then that means that somebody else should be at that place. It just would make most sense. And now whoever that's going to be, as opposed to when it is that you would rather be at that place, being that it is that you've established it, you can't be there while they're there. That means by the time you come in there, they're going to have to be moving somewhere else. That should be happening anyway, to where you can be alone wherever it is that you would be, but not have to be left. Any other place that you can go to be alone have to be left in the open. Is the best part, is the way to best approach it. And that's going to take respect and honor. That's going to take a code of established structure to codifying of points of interest, points of reference, and points of progression. Yeah, so it's interesting and it's intricate because it's already an established sort of, industry or whatever. It's established sort of like world system or world market, basically.
Say that I want to give a say, just move it slow, please.
Politicians who were slaveholders dumb the people down, saying this is a democracy. They created an admiralty court called traffic court, listed it under crimes because the Constitution only allows a criminal court and a civil court. And you can't try a civil case in a criminal court, and you can't try a criminal case in a civil court, can you? Now, where did the Constitution set up traffic court to stop the people for freedom of passage on the land?
That's right.
Apartheid. So they created traffic court, which really is an apartheid court. So that slaves, so-called slaves, could never be free. Because if they could stop your movement, just like you dam up a river on a stream, you create death. Because movement is life. And so you can regulate the economy simply. If I want to break your family up, all I got to do is send out a fake officer to keep stopping you on the corner, take your license, and you can't make a living. But they never had that right. Government never had that right. Now these are private, corporate entities that operating on private charter that's using supreme law of the land to interfere with the rights of the citizens and the natural people and robbing them legally. Not lawfully, legally. Legal and lawful is not the same thing. So don't get that caught up either. Do you understand? Because the supreme law is the Constitution. Now, let's look at this. Now, let's back to this other point. And the key thing, because I know you already know certain things already. So the first issue with an issue of controversy is the status. That means, who are you? Are you a party to the matter? Not only, who are you? The party. Oh, you're Russian? Oh, no problem with that. Where's your documents that say it? Not your mouth. That's how you challenge jurisdiction. You don't say, I challenge the jurisdiction. You
Yeah, so it's interesting and it's intricate because it's already an established sort of, industry or whatever. It's established sort of like world system or world market, basically. It's already a network. And if they catch wind and they, and then it's just, the cover's blown, the cat's out of the bag. So that's why it's gotta be like to where it's everywhere at once. And areas of it that no one else can get to, where the most crucial bubbling can take place. And for the most part, that's not necessarily happening in these other established world networks. Why? Because it's not raw enough. You know what I mean? It's just not ill enough. It's not natural enough and organic enough, right? And niggas are compromising. They had to do it because that's the way that's in their blood, so they gotta do it. You know what I mean? You can't even do it unless it's in your blood to begin with. So that's another hole. Generally speaking, that don't work itself out. That's more of a pressure on the structure than it is a support. But in ways it supports the immunity of, and also the better management to a certain extent, but it's just a little more drabber than, of course, everybody getting it how they live, everybody contributing something individual as well as authentically personal. You know what I mean? And that be the situation. So that's one thing that is a plus, but that only lasts for so long too before it becomes whatever else. So everything is always fluctuating. So that's what I mean, like, that's how you can have it to where, okay, it's like you can be involved, and that's our situation why they'll let you get involved to a certain extent. Just to kind of like flavor these different areas where it's like niggas are losing interest or losing, allegiance, right? Because it's just, it's like it's the same thing is going on within the same people. When it's like, it's not supposed to be like that. That right there is unnatural. It's not about blood. It is because we all come from the same place, same blood to begin with, to a certain extent, at least enough.
Communities that children growing up, and I saw it. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. A true Jew is a black Jew.
No, that's not true. You must correct.
Correct me. I'm listening.
Black is the code for a slave. Once you start taking the fiction and making it retroactive, you just again gave up your birthright.
So how do
how do you do it? One of the first lessons is you are not Negro, black, or colored, or Ethiopian. You are Moors.
So in other words, the true Jews were Moors.
There was Moabite Canaanite blood. And Moor is just a modern name for Moroccan or a Moroccan American, which is a corruption of Moroccan. And you got Moabite Canaanite Hittites. Mostly of Moabites, you might have had some of the Chaldeans, Abyssinian tribes were dealt with a Jew creed, but Jew is really a degree in ancient culture.
And that's the religion, but then
Jew is really a degree of knowledge in ancient culture, not really a bloodline, though we may be Hebrew. Do you understand? Tribal.
Yeah, not only that, they're known for education.
Our problem is that our concepts are wrong. Yeah. We've allowed, once you start allowing sorcerers to control the name, because this is the key to sorcery. Once you control the name, you can put your spirit on it. You create something that was not. You name it, you put your spirit on it, then the law applies to that you regulate within that jurisdiction. Once you get someone else to agree to be in that jurisdiction or to be that which they are not, you have them. But they must do it willingly, because everything in civilization operates by covenant, by a contract. This is the reason why in any proper issues of adjudication, they ask you, do you understand? Meaning, do you agree?
It's not about blood. It is, because we all come from the same place, same blood to begin with, to a certain extent. I mean, at least enough towards the beginning, towards the establishment, even if it was different species of the same human race, which that's the case, is basically what I'm saying is, the human race don't have the same species. I mean, it's the same species. To be honest, they say it's different species. But the African is a whole nother species of human. Right? That's what they say. Right? When you go into it, right? Even anthropology will tell you this. Right? There's something that there's a science called eugenics, or what is called a system called eugenics, where different genes of melanated beings from one range to another are classified into different basic species. It's called eugenics. Now this is the core and the crux of what is called anthropology, which is different from biology, because biology is the ology of bio, meaning life and living. So that should include all living beings, but anthropology starts to go into the different traits of humans, for whatever reason. It's kind of like how you got Egyptology, but you have no other countryology. You know what I mean? There's no other country with an ology. You ain't got Americanology, you ain't got Frenchology, right? You ain't got Russianology. So what is that saying? That's saying that it was everything happening there where everyone was meeting at. Okay, so aside from that, that came from somewhere though. Right, that was basically the meeting point. But it was a lot of different species, or rather, human traiting that was happening that led up into that meeting point. You see what I'm talking about? Whatever sorts of segregations and differences and adaptations, all these other things, all was happening separately, but at the same time in relation to each other, because people were still intermingling. There was never not no intermingling. Even the Vikings back in the day was voyaging the world on ships, nigga. You think there wasn't no people when they was coming to the lands they was coming to? What you think was happening? It was exchanges. You know what I'm saying? This is all after the dynasties, though, supposedly, but there was Vikings that was exploring the world before the dynasties, right? Now, these Vikings, they say, was the original voyagers of the world. It's really interesting how it actually happens and how it ended up. What was the point I was saying about that? I'm talking about brotherhoods and how you can have brothers that's not your blood and the difference between that and the differences and the significances, okay? Because see, that's the two sides of it, right? Cain killed Abel, nigga. Seth killed Asar, nigga. You understand? Tyrone killed Raheem. That was from different gangs. Sometimes Lorenzo killed Jimmy or Johnny, and they be from the same gang, right? Sometimes two brothers will join two different gangs. You understand? So what's the difference? That's the whole point, what I'm saying. Is you following me? About as far as that's the whole point of what I'm saying? It's gonna come down to a different code than just having to be up around somebody, girl. Cain couldn't have killed Abel if it wasn't his brother. I mean, he could have. They might have had whatever differences, but it wouldn't have been the same. It's the whole thing. It's kind of like the moral of that story, as well as the moral of Seth and Asar. Now, you look at Seth. Now, I'm gonna let you know something right now. Seth represents not only anger and confusion. Seth represents foreigners, cuz.
That's a misconcept. And that's where they get the misconcept of the missing link. That's why they can't find it, because it doesn't exist. Do you understand? The theory is a fraud of the argument about the primate and the evolution into the man. No, the truth of it is the primate animals, also with genetic experiments with flowers, and the primate and the mixers in the Moabite woman's womb, and that's how we produce the European sons, which is also implied in the 25th, the 2 and the 5 chapter of Genesis, with the two sons, twins from the same mother, but they're two different nations. One is ruddy, pale, and hairy. The other is normal. One steals the other's birthright, and then reverse pattern. That's your karma. See, we'll tell you a lot of history in the astrology books, but people don't know what they're reading. Just like they'll read, and David, the son of this brother, and the son of this, and the son of this, and they think they're, generational sons where you have children. They're dynasties. So the concepts are wrong. But it's important for the Inquisitionists to tamper with the information in order to distract you, in order to dumb the world down, because they could not conquer the world. You can't defeat the Moors. They had to remove the Moors from the land, move them from your mind, because they couldn't defeat you physically. Because there's only one people on the planet, that's us. And everybody else is derivative. But yet we're all the same people. And once you start accepting that racism stuff, hatred, divisionism, all that crap entered, and they played you. And they've been playing you even now. That's why once you really understand the truth, Moors, and particularly Moors who understand the truth of the Great Seal, don't play into that hate game. Don't play into that divisional game. They stick with the law, and they stick with divine, moral, and ethical principles. Because that's civilization. Do you understand? Outside of that, you got anarchy, and that's not in anybody's interest. Because Mother Nature don't play. And she does not seek to preserve anything or anyone that does not seek to preserve themselves. And since we're tied together, the harm that you do to another, you do to yourself. It's just a matter of time. And that's the truth on how what you call ethical and moral principles are derived, because that's built in nature. It has nothing to do with your belief systems. Do you understand? And so that goes back to the Circle 7 and understanding it. But let's go back to this point. Let's go back to your dollar bill. Now you see that one there? Now take that I won't call it a dollar bill because it's not. This artifice, and fold it right in half. And then look at that light. And you'll notice that you'll see one seal. You got obverse, obverse, right? Are we clear on this? I don't want to go past this because I'm gonna make this very clear before I go into this. Status, first issue at law. Jurisdiction and venue is determined and clear for the record. Not they saying, yeah, I think we have jurisdiction. No, bull. Documented for the record. If it ain't documented, they don't have it. That's how you challenge jurisdiction without saying I challenge the jurisdiction of the court.
That's right.
You want in evidence before the people all issues in the matter as well as the persons who claim to be parties to the matter. So status, so I put down my nationality card, here's yours. If you don't produce it, we ain't going no further. Now you see the problem, this is the problem that they're having with the immigration problem. You know what that thing they did, I think it was 94, I forget what that article thing that they passed in California, where resolution because once they started arguing the nationality, it's only two people here. That's the Moors, descendants of the ancient Moabites, and the Mexicans, also descendants of the ancient Moabites. Get the point? Huh? And everybody else is either European or from Asia or some of the islands, but they're not Aboriginal or indigenous to this land. So they have what you call, where do they derive their authority to govern here? There has to be some kind of covenant, don't they? Then they say, well, King George and guys and Charles give us grant. They ain't grant crap. They ain't grant something in England. They ain't grant nothing here. Because we had government here before they even had government. That's why it was important for them to burn. Do you get the point? Huh?
Yeah.
And why it was important for them to say India was here as opposed to Asia where they first said it was. Because when Pedro navigated the ships to the Atlantis Islands, which they call the Virgin Islands today, the archipelago, they didn't ever hit the mainland. Do you understand? All right. And so they calling us Indians there too, because all on the islands they find all these statues with feathers on, particularly on Easter Island, and they're thousands upon thousands of years old. They went to Cuba and they got a Moorish fort there. Puerto Rico, what they call San Juan, Moorish forts there. In Brazil, Moorish forts there. And they had to bury all this history. Do you understand? Because they were never able to come into the Western Hemisphere until they merged their kingdoms and defeated the Moors. So they had to wipe the Moors out of history because we ruled the planet. The 7 seas. Do you understand? So the Moorish Empire became the British Empire. Once you understand that, you understand why the sun neither rises or sets on the British Empire, because it's really the Moorish Empire. Because we ruled the planet. And when they defeated the Moors, they inherited this, so to speak. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, it's just like, for instance, let's go down Center City, right?
This nigga said was literally the symbolization of foreigners. Okay, now look, bro, that's saying a lot, my nigga. That's saying a lot. I'm not racist. But anybody focused on race at all, you got a complex about they self. Right? Which your brother, you supposed to be your brother's keeper because we all of the same life, regardless of what species, blood type, cultural connections. We all have the same assignment here, my nigga. That is to get it how we live and stay true to yourself and expand on your path, cuz.
Why? You ask why. Do we have much choice? Yes and no. That's a qualified yes or no. One, because, let me see. Most of the people I know called Negro, Black, and Colored who agree to that build more churches and liquor stores than they build anything other institutions. Of course, they're saved and nobody else is. What else you want to know?
I came to a conclusion.
Have you?
Stupidity is a product of education.
Yeah.
And it's the only product of education.
Yes. Now, stupidity is a product
of education.
educated illiterates. This is why anytime that you go into any ancient civilization, culture, or history, one of the first statements that's presented to you, man, and you know man is generic. It does not mean masculine. It means woman and man, and it means woman first. Day. Do you understand? Man, know thyself. That's the first rule. If you don't know yourself, how can you know outside self? If you don't know self and first acknowledge self, and we're not saying that, you know, like from some cliche position. We're talking about information, not just data. A knowledge of yourself. Everything that you bring in comes into a false foundation and cannot come out to a balanced equation. It's impossible because it's against the laws of nature. We're not talking about the laws of belief, laws of prayer, laws of nature. And nature does not play nor forgive you because you want to go swimming in the middle of the ocean and talking about, well, they're goldfish and they're sharks. Because they think you're a meal, and it's nothing personal, and the devil didn't do it if he bites your foot. I mean, do you understand? And we need to really get away from beliefs and start getting to knowledge and being able to separate. One of the most important things of how modern religion has served corrupt government, and the reason they support it is because it's been used to suppress civilization, to stagnate knowledge. Do you understand? To steal the people's quote unquote, undoubtedly I say this, steal your reasoning mind. Once they get that, they don't have to worry about the body. All they need to do is put agents amongst you who have a fez on in secret, take their fez off, whether they're in church, lodge, synagogue, wherever they were this week, and then come amongst you and start playing. You know, we really ought to keep hope alive, and you know, it's one of these days